Right, welcome to FastTrack FBA Journeys. This is a series of videos we are recording of interviews with people on their Amazon journeys. We're looking at people from different levels, whether they be starting today or whether they be selling £1 million. What we're really looking to do is to understand their why. Why did they get into their Amazon journeys? What are their goals? What do they hope to achieve from their Amazon business? And what's happened? How did they start? And what's happened today? And what we really want to do here is to share that information, that journey with you, but also as well, looking for those top tips, those little takeaways, those little golden nuggets, those gems, which are going to allow you to grow your business better, learning from the successes, but also the mistakes that we all make in life, and also learning about other people who have done exactly the same things that we've done, or maybe that we're about to go through. So lock yourself in and get ready, because today is going to be a fantastic day. So today we are blessed. We have got the fantastic presence of Luke Filer with us. And I don't want to introduce Luke too much because, my God, he can do it himself far better than I ever can. But what I'd really like to do is just to hand it over to Luke for the next 30 seconds and ask him to give us a real quick talk through of who he is, a little bit about him, maybe outside of his Amazon business, just so we can get a little bit of a feel about who this person is that we're about to listen to. So, Luke, over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, so in summary, I was born in South Africa, moved to the UK when I was around 5, lived down south for a couple of years, then moved to North Wales, and then around 7 or 8 years ago, I ended up living near Liverpool, where I still am today. I was at the University of Leeds studying accounting and finance. During my second year, I decided I really just want to focus on the business side of things. Over Easter, when I was at home, I really enjoyed that, so dropped out of uni. And now I find myself as a full-time Amazon seller. And while I'm very busy, it's a good busy. I enjoy it. I'd way rather that than sort of be back at uni. And that's kind of where I'm at today at the business side of things. Alongside business, I love sport, love sort of going out, socializing. And I think it's important to find that balance between business as well as personal life, because after all, that's what the business is for, is to sort of facilitate that life. And obviously, if you can enjoy the business as well, then that's awesome.
Thank you for introducing yourself. That's really good. And I think, look, it's really nice for you to talk not only a bit, touch upon your Amazon FBA business, but I think, to talk about that, hey, we do this because we run a business because we want to live the life we want to live. We don't want to, we don't want to work every single day. And sometimes it feels like that, but hey, we've got to make our businesses work for us to allow us to live the life we want, because if it doesn't, then quit it now, go get a job, because my God, you get security, you get the 9 to 5, you get the paycheck. But if you can make it work, and obviously a lot of people can, and yourself successfully, today is a day we can learn about that. So thank you for sharing that. That was really good. So what I really want to talk through today with Luke, and to really get a feel for, is very much about his journey so far, where he's come from, and just to understand a bit more about his whys, his motivations, and where he really wants to be. So, and I think, Luke, the question which I'd ask you is, talk me through your FBA journey and start off the beginning. How long ago was it did you start, and why? Why did you start selling on Amazon?
So I'd say the start of my Amazon journey has got nothing to do with Amazon at all, really. I'd say it was probably when I was about 11 and I decided I'm going to start a secondhand shop in my primary school. We were sort of given the opportunity to run a sort of project as such, and my decision was between doing cricket coaching, I quite like cricket, or running a sort of secondhand shop. And the business side of me took over. I just love numbers, always have since I was young. I was like, yeah, I'll do a secondhand shop. Anyway, I think I ended up making a couple £100 or something, which at that age you feel like you could go buy all the Haribos you want. But yeah, so I think that's where it started, because since then I've always kind of done businessy type things, although I wouldn't say anything has felt like a real business up until I sort of quit uni to do Amazon. Even now, still feels a bit surreal that I have a company formed. It doesn't feel right, but yeah, anyway, so Amazon for me sort of first came on the scene last summer. So as I mentioned, I was at uni in Leeds. So after my first year, I sort of looked at it. I've got 3 months here. I don't want to just sit around playing computer games for 3 months. I'd enjoy that, but I need to find something to do. So ended up looking around on YouTube. I think YouTube's an awesome resource for looking at different ways to sort of make money, I guess. Ended up stumbling on a guy called Stefan James. Then I stumbled across a guy, Brock Johnson, maybe a few days, a week later. I found out about this online arbitrage, retail arbitrage stuff, and I was watching videos on like how I do this, and I was like, this seems pretty cool. It seems pretty low risk. I can get into this pretty easily. I can do it sort of whilst I'm doing other stuff, and ended up having a placement towards sort of the last 6 weeks of summer. And that's when I started the arbitrage stuff as well. I was doing the research while I was at that placement, and then I started buying stuff while I was at that placement, and I got stuff delivered to the actual workplace and everything. And then they were pretty cool about it, and took that home. And eventually I did my first shipment, which was probably the toughest thing I think with getting started. There's lots of information there about sourcing and all this stuff, and that was great. But in terms of actually creating a shipment and prepping it, I just went through so much hassle and everything. And it's just such a pain really to do that first shipment, because there's so much ifs and buts. And Amazon, whilst I'll say definitely adhere to Amazon guidelines, they make it look like if you do one thing slightly wrong, you're in so much trouble, when in reality, it's not really the case. I mean, yeah, definitely try and adhere to the guidelines, but don't worry about it too much. Yeah, so that's kind of how I got started. Made my first sale in August. And I guess it's difficult to say why I got started, because it's not a case of, for me, that I hated university or anything, needed something, sort of wanted to get out of a job or whatever. It's just a case for me, I've kind of always just been very sort of business minded. I love sort of keeping busy. And for me, keeping busy is either like playing computer games or it's doing business type stuff. And whilst I very easily slip into playing computer games for hours, it's at the end of the day, you look back and you're like, okay, that's cool, but I've not really gotten anything out of that. So I'd rather be putting that effort into a business, which probably not as fun, but it's a lot more satisfying. You can look back on your week and be like, wow, I've accomplished a lot. Whereas computer games, like, yeah, I've done nothing. I've done nothing there. It was fun at the time, and I don't regret it. I enjoyed it, but I kind of at the stage now where, like, yeah, I need to actually sort of do something with my time. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
Well, look, I think for me, thank you, very much for that. It's really interesting, and I think you mentioned, and I get you. You're at that age whereby it's some people might spend time on computer games. You're like, no, man, I need to be productive. I need to be making something for my life. And hey, well done to you. I think that's fantastic. You said I can't be playing games. I need to be spending that time doing something which is going to help me in the future. And you'll reap the rewards of that. So well done. And I think 10 months, fantastic. And I love how the fact that you made $100 at school. That's like incredible, like secondhand store. I remember doing the kid with my sister, but that was like at home with boxes and curtains, not actually making real money. So entrepreneurial spirit in you. I love that. Let's just kind of get a feel for your business. Let's really understand where your business is at now. So I think a couple of questions which I'd ask are, if you don't mind sharing, and feel free to say that I'd rather not say that, but tell me, how much money did you start with? And just talk me through, like, your revenue as you've gone along over the months. That'd be like, and we can kind of get a feel for how the business has gone. And even if you've used extra finance, like what did you use and when?
I started with, so I had a £1,500 student bank account overdraft, which I pretty much used, and I had a bit of cash, about sort of £1,500. My dad lent me around, pretty soon after that, he lent me about £1,000 or two, and that's now, I won't say exactly how much that is, because I don't know if he would be happy with me sharing. I don't know, so I won't go into too much detail there.
It's up to you. I don't mind how much you want to share.
I don't mind, but just, yeah, in terms of that's his decision as well. But I get asked this question quite a lot, and it's hard for me to say exactly how much I started with. I mean, then I then got a credit card, which, I mean, I don't have much credit history, so I only got sort of 250 quid, which went up to 450 quid. But it's that thing where it's like any capital I can get helps me, because I was like, at the time when I started out, I was doing RA, and I'd go and I'd easily spend like 200, 300 quid at like Tesco or whatever. I mean, not every store, but then you're spending it and you're like, oh, my cash is running out here, but I want to go and do it again tomorrow. And it's like that thing where I need more cash. Like, how can I get more cash kind of thing? It's doing that. I think the advice I'd say is kind of whatever you're comfortable with. I think OA, RA, in particular, which most people do when they're starting out, is very much a capital game. You look at if you're paying for like software and stuff, you've got to get the profit to pay for those things. You need to be spending money. I mean, it's all well and good if you're going and doing RA and you can just put the cash in really, but if you're doing OA and you're paying for subscriptions and stuff, you need to be spending a fair bit to get that money back. But I don't know how helpful that is, but that's kind of my starting capital. And then in terms of sort of sales, revenue and stuff, I started in August. I only made my first sale end of August. So I didn't really get much money there. September, October, I did about, I think it was like 3-4 grand a month. It started pretty small. November and December, Q4 obviously sort of skyrocketed a bit. I did about 11, 12 October as well. October, November, December, you sort of go, I think it was like mid-October to about start of December was kind of like the peak where I was doing about 12, 13K a month, roughly, in between like 11 and 13. And then everyone was like, oh, it'll slow off after that. But the thing is, I was getting all this cash. And because I had like a student loan coming in and I had other sort of forms of finance coming in, just small bits here and there. Like I got a scholarship from uni, which I was getting £200 every month in. And I was getting all this cash coming in. So I was just like, everything I was getting pretty much reinvesting. Like, I'm very much, I think Tim Ferriss said something like, not giving up a glass of wine today for £1 million 10 years from now. Like I very much have that attitude. I'll go out and enjoy myself and everything, but I'm not one of those people that will go and buy the latest iPhone. And you look at iPhone and some of them are like 700, 800 quid. I just don't get it. I'd way rather, for me, that's like, if you look at like a day out, like 30 or 40 quid, and I'm sort of getting sidetracked here, but this is all about the capital, it's related to capital and stuff. Because if at the same time, if you're not, I wouldn't say it's wasting money because everyone's personal preference, but to me, I look at like, I'd rather go on like a night out with my friends and everything, and I could go on like 30 nights out or get an iPhone. See what I mean? Or I can invest it into my business. So while I wouldn't go into the supermarket and pass up on some food because I'm like, oh, I'm going to invest in my business, I'm going to give everything, I'm going to eat plain rice all week and spend a tenner on my shopping. I wasn't like that. I'll go and eat nice food. I'll go and get my gym membership and do all that. But I still at the same time was sensible about what I was purchasing. I wasn't going over the top. And so it's finding that balance, I think. And like I touched on, this personal preference. But anyway, back to the story. I was getting all this capital coming in. I was getting my profit coming in from Amazon, cash back, everything. And I was just reinvesting pretty much all of that. And so by the time sort of January, February came, my sales was still at like 12 or 13 grand ish, because it wasn't really going down because I was putting more and more money in. And then, I get to sort of like February, March, and it's pretty much the same. It sort of stagnated around there for the last sort of few months. I think April was probably my sort of best month for a while. May went down. So May, pretty recently now, went downhill a bit because I spent a lot of time in sort of long-term infrastructure, if I want to put it that way. I went to few different events, and I spent a lot of time on sort of VA recruitment and sort of planning VA training. And so I wasn't sending a lot of stock in. I wasn't purchasing as much stock because I wasn't spending as much time sourcing. I was trying to put time into things that are going to generate me rewards in the long term. So I was making that sort of short-term sacrifice a bit. And so May I did around, I think, 7 or 8 grand in sales. So it's a bit, not loads, but went down a bit. And then this month, June, has been pretty good. So the last 7 days, I did a post in group, and I actually did, I think it was like £4,500 in 7 days. So that's kind of,
All in a chicken dinner. Well done.
Pretty cool. And like I think it was like nearly 250k revenue a year if I carry on at that rate. So that's something. Now I'm at the stage now where I'll go into this in more detail and with Thomas, with you guys, but I've recently hired VAs and I'm finding so many deals, and it's kind of capital that's limiting me now. But I think that sort of gives a rough overview. And to sum it up, my tail revenue so far has been about £90,000. I checked it recently. So that's from the UK and the full European marketplace. It's about £90,000. And I've done about like a grand on eBay or something, just sort of selling stuff that returns, stuff that I've gotten and is being changed to like hazmat or just rubbish like that. But it all adds up. definitely all adds up. But yeah, I think that kind of gives like a rough overview.
You mentioned it there. Yeah, I'll just touch upon it. You mentioned eBay. Some people think about, I talk to people and they think about, hey, we should sell on Amazon and eBay. What do you use eBay for? Do you sell everything on eBay, or is there some reason you use eBay?
Yeah, so Amazon for me is the main focus, primarily with FBA. And this again will be something I touch on. I've started using a prep center recently, which has saved me a lot of time. And through the prep center, I'm looking at selling on eBay as well. And so everything I source at the moment is for Amazon, but something I'm looking at is potentially sourcing stuff for eBay as well. But I just don't have the time to sort of look into that at the moment. So when I sell something on eBay, it'll be because I bought something for Amazon and it's not gone to plan. So that's pretty much in summary. So there'll be a few reasons. So there might be a case of there's one where I've bought these items, bought these soft toys to sell it on Amazon. I bought them a few times, they were selling fine, but then Amazon's come back in stock. So it's like the fourth, fifth time I replenished it. And the price was higher on eBay. So it wasn't really a loss, but then I had to prep it myself. So then I took them out of the ones I had on Amazon. I had a few that I'd bought as well. So I had quite a few. And I've actually pretty much just sold my last one about last week. So I was still making profit on them, but it's just a case of I couldn't really sell it on Amazon anymore. The price had gone down. Amazon was selling it, so I'll just sell it on eBay. Another thing is removals. So if I get stuff in Amazon that I can't sell because, for example, it's been marked as defective or a customer's returned it as customer damage, I'll get that back to me. Sometimes you can send that back into Amazon, but often it'll be damaged or whatever, and I'll either put that on Facebook Marketplace and or eBay and sell it through there. You can get pretty good money. I think I would sell on eBay more. It's just the fact that you have to then go and prep it yourself. I don't like making sort of just a few quid to go. It's like routines for me. If you've got your routines at Amazon and you get a sale on eBay, it's like, okay, then I've got to go into my garage, find the item, pack it, and then go to the post office. And like you've made say a $5, but then you've just taken 30 minutes out your day, and it's like you got to value that time. And it's not just the 30 minutes; it's the routines that you've got into a routine, and it's just that structure. But that's just me. So eBay is something I'm looking at now that I use a prep center because I can get them to fulfill orders, or there's ways. Probably won't go into it in this because it took too long. But there's ways you can fulfill orders. You can send stuff into Amazon and sell on eBay as well. And even though it's in Amazon, you can still get fulfillment there. But for me, honestly, it's just a case of time. It's something I want to look at, but I just can't do everything for now. I'm sure that's a point we'll touch on more. You just can't do everything. But yeah, that's the stuff I'll sell on eBay.
And I completely agree with you. When you're doing your own business, you're big. And hey, whether you've got a job, it doesn't matter. Time is your biggest problem. And as much as it sounds great selling something for a $5, you're like, man, if that's going to take me an hour to like go find it, pack it, I've got to pay for the packing materials, go down to the post office, post it, bring it back in. You're like, I've just earned £5 an hour. You're like, that's below minimum wage. Like, you're wasting your time. This is about scaling. It's about earning more per hour, not less. So yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think you touched upon a really top tip there, is the fact that it's kind of like building your systems, do things which allow you to scale, and stop doing the things which are going to be one-off like hits. Because like you've made a $5 or a $10 on eBay, great, but you might have to deal with all the returns, and you're just doing it for one thing, and it's wasting your time. And you want to build systems that allow you to scale. So like whether it be hiring a VA, that's going to keep earning you money long after you've done it. Agreed. I think it's fantastic. Right. So we kind of touched upon revenue, and then we talked a bit about eBay, but I'd really like to just come back to revenue, not so much revenue, but starting capital. Now, you talked through that you had 1,500 starting, student loan. Then you had like a personal grand, and then your father gave you $2,000, and you got some credit cards. And hey, I agree with you. Like a credit card, £250, it seems like nothing, but hey, we've all got to start somewhere, and you've got to build that credit rating. So well done to you. I think that's fantastic. Can I ask you the question? Really, is many people I read how little can I start with Amazon? Can I do it for £500? What's Luke's advice? What would you say to that?
Yeah, I kind of touched on it. It kind of depends what kind of model you're doing. I think if we keep it to retail and online arbitrage, I think they're definitely the two most common by far. If you're doing sort of wholesale, private label, it'll vary. So if we talk about online and retail arbitrage, the thing you got to look at is your costs, I guess. If you're doing online arbitrage, the way I started out, I had very little costs at the start because I used free trials for different software. So Tactical Arbitrage, FBA Wizard, and Source Mogul ended up getting nearly a month in free trials just from using those three things. So that's straight away, didn't have any cost there. But then even if you do that, you're still going to have other costs. Like now you've got to pay for Keeper, which is pretty much essential. You're probably going to want a deal analysis tool because it's just a time saver, like Bible Pro or FBA Multi-Tool, something like that. And then even then you're gonna be doing the prep yourself probably. So you've got to buy, or I didn't actually buy boxes at the start because I managed to get them sort of for free by when I was doing RA. But even just things like a tape gun, you're gonna buy some tape, you're gonna buy box cutting tools, like I bought a heat gun, bought scales, all these things like it adds up. And even if you spend, okay, say you manage to use free trials and everything and you've only spent 100 quid, you look at that. If you've got a sort of net margin of 20%, which is really, really good, you've still got to then sell like a gross margin. You still got to sell 500 quid product just to cover those expenses. And so you've then got to buy like at least 500 quid's worth of sale to get that. So, and then you're not covering your time because your time's worthwhile. And sure, I guess you can look at it as an experience or whatever, but I think it's a really difficult question to answer because sure, you can get started with a little bit of money and build yourself up. And I know people who have done that, but you're making things really difficult for yourself because then as well you're gonna be like, okay, I've spent my money, cool. Now I've got to wait a month for Amazon to pay me because you don't get that money straight away. You've got to, if you bought stock, you've got to wait for it to be delivered to you. You then got to send it into Amazon. You then got to wait for them to check it in. You then got to wait for your item to sell. And if you're starting out, you might be making mistakes there with sort of how long it's going to take to sell. You're not going to know if the item's going to tank or not. You don't have that experience. So it's probably going to take longer than you think, or might actually take less time than you think, because on the flip side, but it's still going to take a while. And then you've got to wait for Amazon to pay out, which there's another couple of weeks there. So that cash flow cycle is a long time. And if you're starting out with little money, you're going to be twiddling your thumbs for a month waiting for Amazon to pay you. So while you can get started for like 400, 500 quid, I just wouldn't really recommend it. If that's all you got, then okay, give it a go, because even if you're breaking even after the first month, you're still going to be learning a lot. And then it might be just be that comfort blanket that you're like, okay, this actually works. I'm going to put more money in now. But if 500 quid is like all you got, then I wouldn't really recommend it, because then it's going to take too long to get that money back. And there's just more, even the expenses now, like I'm thinking on my head, like you got to pay your Amazon subscription and everything. It adds up. Definitely adds up. RA is slightly different, as talked about, because there's probably a few less costs there in terms of if you're getting the stuff from trial and that, then I suppose it's pretty similar. But RA, you're doing stuff out and about, so you don't have all this deal analysis stuff. Then you still got to pay for like the prep things and Amazon subscription and everything. So this is why I find it's a difficult question to answer, and I don't really like it. I like the approach of how little I can get started with, and I guess it is difficult though, because it's easy for me because I was at a stage where like it doesn't go well. It's like, oh well, not really the end of the deal. I think what you have to realize with Amazon is if you do the research, it's hard to go wrong. At least that's what I find. Like, not with Amazon in general, but with online arbitrage and retail arbitrage, it's kind of hard to go wrong if you do the research. Sure, you want to get started and not, like, some people won't get started. They'll read and read and read and read and watch videos and everything. You want to get started, but at the same time, I get people coming to me asking, to be blunt, pretty ridiculous questions. Like they'll go, "Oh, what's a buy box?" kind of thing, and you like, if you're asking that kind of question, you just need to go in and actually do the research first. You haven't put the work in yourself, but yeah, I think to summarize, get to a point where you're confident, and then put sort of as much cash as you're comfortable in. But yeah, for me, like I was at a stage where I just tried to, I think, at least get like a grand or two, because that's just going to give yourself the best chance to really be able to sort of scale and get that. As I said, the big problem is once you buy those products, what are you going to do then? And if you're happy to wait around, that's fine. Or if you're happy to just test it out and then invest more money in after, that's fine as well. Just sort of have a plan of action, I guess.
That's good. I think, and I think the point that I would kind of, I took from you is the fact that, if you're going to come into this, you've got to treat it like a business. It is a business. It's not a kind of little like side hobby you can do for a couple of quid. You're either committed or you're not. And, whether you're learning about all these things on YouTube, what the buy box is, really dictates like how committed you are. And if you learn that and you save the money, then you're going to do well. But if you're like, can I ask Luke what the buy box is and can I do it on £100? You're like, you're probably not going to make it, and hey, some people might, but it's a lot harder. So treat it like a business, take it seriously, and you'll reap the rewards of that. So that's really good. And I think a really valid point. And can I ask you, you started quite a bit, and if I ask you, you started with, and I'm just doing some rough sums, roughly £5,000. And you're doing 10 grand turnover. What kind of problems did you face with cash flow, over your journey?
I think problems I had with cash flow is it's kind of what I touched upon with Amazon. There is quite, I don't know, relative to other businesses who have some really long cash flow cycles, but it probably takes longer than people think, because if we talk about online arbitrage, where you have to buy, so say you find a product and then you order it and it takes 3 days to be delivered or whatever, and then you get around to prepping it a couple of days later and you wait for UPS, and that's like a week, say, and then you send it into Amazon and it might be another couple of days, and by the time Amazon's checked it in, maybe that's another week. So it might be less, so it's like 1 to 2 weeks total to get your item into Amazon and on sale. And then if you've got 10 of an item, you're not going to instantly sell them all. You're going to be selling it, and you might buy like a month's worth of stock. And so once by the time you've sold that month's worth of stock, you're then at sort of week 5 or whatever. And then you got to wait for Amazon to pay you. And so you'll be getting, for that first sale, you'll be getting the money through, I said maybe like 3 or 4 weeks at like best case scenario. But the problem is you're sort of waiting probably around 5 weeks for when you find a product to getting paid for that product. And then sometimes things change. Like it's not a case of, you could do the best keeper analysis, but I was talking to you before, like the buy box could get suppressed and then sales slow down, or Amazon could come on the listing where they've never been on it before, and things happen. Or you could sell it quicker than you expect. You could have like, if you're selling in the UK, you could have not taken into account the fact that it's selling really well in Germany. You could accidentally buy a really good product. I think problems with cash flow was just a case of like finding those deals to buy and then not really having enough cash. So I was really keen on getting sourced and everything, but it is difficult because you need to be spending, well, for me, it wasn't that difficult to find a few grand's worth of items to spend. It was just getting that cash. But at the same time, you don't need to be spending that kind of money. You can be a bit more selective and buy better deals, but I just don't like really leaving that money on the table. I find it really hard to do. If I find a product where I'm like, that's worth my time, I'll try and buy it. I think one thing I did well is that I'm quite well prepared. I put a lot of time into it. I always ask questions. That's one thing I recommend, just ask questions. Like myself, speaking about myself, I'm personally really happy to help people. I had people who I speak to this day who were really helpful when I got started with my Amazon journey. I'll just ask in groups, and eventually I'll start chatting to these people and just ask them questions. And people are willing to help you if you've put the effort in. It's going back to that point. You don't want to be asking someone, what is the buy box? But if you'll be like, oh, I spent half an hour analyzing this product, I'm really not sure on this specific thing, can you just have a look for me? They'll probably be like, yeah, sure. Like, I'll happily have a look. And like, I'll happily do that. So I think the biggest thing is ask questions, and you kind of avoid the amount of potential problems that you have. The biggest thing for me, issue getting started, was just preparing a shipment. I found it pretty difficult the first time around, just in terms of how long it took getting everything right, sort of setting up a shipment, prepping everything correctly. And then when I came around to printing the labels, it was really frustrating. I bought these labels, like 27, whatever, on a sheet, which is like what I got told to do. And then I was like printing it, but then the sort of like the printer was like overlapping. So like the label, so the actual label, when you peeled it, there's like half the ASIN was on the next stick or whatever, so it hadn't formatted correctly. But I thought I was doing something wrong, so I was getting like really frustrated, and I was like, why is it not working? Eventually, like, I literally got like a ruler out, and I was like measuring it. I'm like, this isn't right. This is like the wrong thing that I was meant to get. So I like called them the next day, and eventually they're like, oh yeah, sorry, we've sent you like the wrong thing or whatever. And so but the issue as well is like you just want to get going. It's like you're buying this stuff for prep, and you've got these items, and you have to like wait for it to be delivered and stuff. So one thing I would say, if you are wanting to that first shipment, like be prepared, like get your stuff ready to prep, because you're going to want to get those items sent in. It's exciting, and it's difficult because I didn't really have any sort of major problems. I think if you do the research, OA and RA is realistically quite a simple business model to get started in. Obviously, I think the first month is difficult because there's so much new stuff, but that's the same with anything. And if you get, I think once I got through that sort of first month, now it's pretty much just like clockwork. Obviously, you can do things, you can hire VAs, which is a new experience. But if you just want to go, okay, I found out how to use a sourcing sheet or a bit of sourcing software, I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to tick it along. I'm happy doing 8K revenue a month on top of my full-time job. That's me happy. Then fair enough. That's fine. Once you've done that first month, it'll be pretty easy. You can buy your time till Q4, put a bit more time in, and that's fine if you want to do that. But I think the problems are when you start doing new stuff like hiring VAs. I had to put a lot of time into that. When I was like moving to a prep center, I had to spend a lot of time researching, asking around, those sort of things. And for me, I like taking those steps when I can to grow my business, automated, that kind of thing. So that's where my sort of, I guess, problems have come from.
That's really good, and thank you for sharing all that. If I just kind of go back, you talked a little bit about Amazon cash flow. And then you talked on that. That was really good, so thank you. But also you talked a bit about, and I would call it expect the unexpected. So I think when you said I'm going to buy a product and like all of a sudden Amazon comes on the product, they've never been on the product before, or maybe get buy box suppression, so much of these things going on. What advice can you offer to people in regards to that? Expect the unexpected. What do you do now to kind of help you, minimize the risk of the unexpected, should we say?
I think firstly, try and put it into a bit of perspective, because I think one thing is that people kind of like, they might have like 100 listings or whatever, and like one item, Amazon will come on it and like think it's the end of the world. And then like when they're sourcing as well, they'll be like, oh, what if this, what if this, what if this? But if we look at it from a point of view, if we compare like OA to wholesale, for example, on average, maybe you buy 5 of the unit with OA, 5 units of a product through OA. Wholesale, that might be on average 100 units. And the thing is, with OA, you've got other options. So if something doesn't go that right, you can probably go eBay, you can return it if you want to. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. Facebook Marketplace, whatever, and a few units, you're probably going to be fine. With wholesale, if you stuck with like 200 units that you've just bought, you're kind of screwed, really. I mean, I've not got loads of wholesale experience, so I can't talk about it too much, but that's kind of the way I look at it in terms of perspective. So I think firstly, the one thing to look at is if stuff does go wrong, it's not the end of the world. Like you might have one dud. Say you lose £1 an item and you bought 10 on it with OA, you lost a tenner, but on the other 99 items you buy, you make £2 an item on like an average tenner. Like, okay, so then that puts it into a bit of perspective. But in terms of minimizing risks to avoiding those situations, I think the number one tool is Keeper. It tells the story of that product's journey. I think that's how I'd put it. I think I talk about this quite a lot. So if you've heard me talk about it before, I apologize. But yeah, sales rank. So especially static sales rank. So if you just look at a product, and I've had this problem a bit recently, but with people I've been speaking to, but they'll be fixated on like the sales rank or the sales rank percentage. So what percentage is in that category, at least then you're looking at relative. So like sales rank, just looking at by itself, awful. Sales rank, looking at in comparison to relative to the category, okay, at least you're getting a bit of an idea. If you start looking at over like a 90-day average, okay, that's better. Okay, so but on those points, so static sales rank, you could have, so say in books, you could, one day it could be 1 million, the next day it could be 200,000, and at 1 million, it's selling 1 a month. At 200,000, it's selling 20 a month. I don't know, but that's just because it's had one sale and now it completely changed the picture of the product. So it's not really, doesn't really tell you that much. If you look over it on 90 days, that's better because it tells you a bit more, tells you the average, but there's still problems there, which I'll come on to. But then the other important point I mentioned is the category, because one category might have like 100,000 products, another might have 10,000, another might have millions. So you've got to look at it relative to that. But then what I said before about the averages, it doesn't tell you about the price it's been at. So you might have an item that's an average sales rank of 10,000, but it's been selling at Fiverr by Amazon. They've not gone out of stock, and the price is 20, and you see, oh yeah, the average sales rank is 10,000 in a big category. It's selling quickly. I'm going to buy this product and sell it for 20 quid. But no, you're not. And if you look at Keeper, you'd see that in the past 2 weeks, it's only sold once because the price is now 20 quid, and before it was selling 20 times a month or whatever. And so that's why Keeper is so important, and learning how to use Keeper. And I think you need to go out there and put the effort into learning how to do it. And I've done it for free. I'm not saying that's the best way to do it. There are courses out there. I guess the main trade-off is time for money, really. So you can go and do your own research and make those decisions, but definitely at least put the effort in whatever you're doing to learning how to use Keeper. And I can't even remember the original questions. I hope I haven't gone off track too much.
The question which I asked was really, you mentioned it, it's kind of like expect the unexpected, things go wrong. What can you do to minimize the unexpected? What do you do to minimize the unexpected? What top tip will Luke share with us today about minimizing the unexpected?
So I think that it's doing your analysis correctly, being able to analyze a Keeper graph. You don't need to worry about the rest of Keeper. That's really useful for other things, but just being able to look at a Keeper graph and analyze that and know as much as you can about that Keeper graph is great. Like knowing what's the difference between a parent ASIN and a child ASIN, being able to do product variation analysis within that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's the kind of thing what I mean, because this is where you're going to go wrong. You're going to think an item's selling 100 times a month, you're going to buy 20 of it, and then you don't sell any. It's things like looking at just simple things like looking at the size of a product, and think about the costs associated, factor in all the costs. So if you're having a prep center, factor in all those costs. And there's so many things where it's just about doing that analysis right. Give yourself the best chance. So you can only go off past data. I mean, you can forecast to an extent. Like if you're buying something on an Argos 3 for 2 toy sale, is the example I always give, expect the amount of sellers to go up. Like that's something that's something obvious about. You can't really predict the future to any great degree of certainty. So you just got to put yourself in the best position by doing analysis that you can. If something does go wrong, then that happens, and it's about what I talked about at the start, putting it into perspective of it's going to happen, but at the end of the day, you're still going to be finding enough good stuff to make it right. And that's been proven by people who have been successful. So, and I would say that it's not that difficult to be able to do the sort of basic analysis to get yourself in that position. And I feel like I might have contradicting myself by making it sound really complicated, but hopefully not, because it's not that difficult. And I've just trained a bunch of VAs who are doing it fine. So obviously it can be done pretty, like they haven't been doing it for long and they're doing it pretty well. So it can be done. Not that difficult. So I think, yeah, to put yourself in the best position, just do the analysis as well as you can. And that requires a bit of research and a bit of experience. Like a lot of it, you'll learn judgment calls will come with experience.
Fantastic, and I think that's really good. So, thank you so much for sharing that. That's really good of you. I appreciate time. Obviously, you've got a business to run, and you're a busy man. So, one thing I haven't really asked you about is your goal. What's the goal of Luke's business? Why do you do this? Well, no, not why. Sorry. Where do you want it to be?
My goal for my Amazon business, in terms of OA, RA, and wholesale, is to get to a stage where I'm investing less than 5 hours a week and it is generating enough money to cover those target monthly incomes. But then Amazon as well, I'd love to launch a private label product just because I think that'll be awesome. So there's other things as well. And there's also my Facebook group and all the other stuff that's attached with it. So yeah, it's difficult.
So I think, look, for me, the question which I'd probably ask you, and the final kind of question before we wrap up is, you've told me about the past, you told me about where you've been, what you've done. Let's talk about the future. Where does Luke's Amazon business go? Tell me about what's going on.
Amazon is just, I just want it to be part of a multitude of things. I don't like the idea of relying on one source of income primarily. Like right now, it's not the end of the world because I don't have a mortgage, I don't have all these bills, I don't have everything. Like if I got suspended from Amazon tomorrow, I'd be fine. I could go and get a job that would, when I talk about the start, that would cover my cash flow, and I'd be okay. So I want to get to a stage where like I do some affiliate marketing type stuff as well. Like that's another income stream that I want to build. But so I'll focus on the Amazon side of things because that's what this is about. Amazon for me, like I've recently hired 6 VAs for sourcing.
6 VAs. Oh my god.
Yeah. So that
As you
I
do,
don't.
it's in one go. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't recommend doing that. But yeah,
Top
I
tip
did.
for anyone: do not hire 6 VAs in one go. And
Yeah.
the first time you've ever hired VAs?
Yeah. Yeah. Don't do that. Yeah, don't do that. But I did, and so I'm trying to utilize that as much as possible now in terms of this. It's like a platform. So I've gone from doing prep to myself to no longer doing prep. I use a prep center. I'm going to say their name. I use We Prep FBA because I think they're awesome from what I've experienced so far. Yeah, really, really good so far. And VAs, so that's another step I've taken. And in the future, that's taking those sort of steps that are going to help me to automate the OA, RA, and eventually wholesale side of things. That's like the grand plan. So I'll have VAs who will help me go through wholesale manifest, who will help me initially sort of generate contacts with wholesalers. Obviously, I'll be doing trade shows and stuff, but it's like finding those things to go to. Sort of to summarize, it's about eliminating tasks, but like outsourcing tasks as far as I can in Amazon. Like if you source a product for OA, that's great. You're getting that money, but it doesn't really help you that much down the line. Whereas if you're training a VA to hire products, it's a long-term gain. Whereas just simply sourcing one product is more of a short-term type thing. But in the sort of near short term, I'm going to be going to Australia for 6 months. And so when I get back, I can then continue to really carry on those types of things, really try and get as close to putting the hours in to get the hours down. So, yeah.
On average, how many hours per week do you think you are currently spending on your Amazon business? Give me a number.
Just on Amazon purely, I'd say about 45, 50 hours a week.
When you're in Australia, how many hours per week do you envision that you'll be working on your Amazon business?
Maybe overall, sort of maybe like 20 hours a week.
Let me ask you 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
You're in Australia for 6 months. When you're in Australia for 6 months, you're halfway through. What do you, and give me a number, no need to explain, just give me a number. Okay. What do you envision your monthly revenue will be? And if we were to come back to you and do the same conversation in a year's time, because we're talking about the future, growing your business, where do you want your Amazon business revenue to be in 1 month?
Around £25,000. In terms of revenue, I'm not looking to really scale that. It'll more be it's more a case of getting to that target revenue and then doing less to achieve it in terms of time.
So let me just recap all of the top tips I've learned from you.
Yeah, sure.
And then I will ask you to name your top 3. And hey, if you want to add one extra in, that's not a problem. But you take away your top 3 that you'd share with anyone listening. So top tips from Luke today are YouTube, Stephen James and Brox Johnson, good people to watch, but obviously just do your research on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, be prepared that you could lose this. Don't go all in. So be prepared that you might need to come out of the business at some point. Creating balance in your life, not going out and buying the latest iPhone, but instead reinvesting that in your business. Using eBay for things that you can't sell on Amazon. Outsource things which you can. You said stop doing like one-off waste of times, which might be like selling the one product on eBay for £5. Start with a little bit, but keep your costs low. Understanding the Amazon cash flow cycle, which is key. Your top tip, which I really like and I would share with anyone, is understand Keeper like there is no tomorrow. Understand the life of the products, the history of the sales rank, what it says about the history of the price and what's going on. Understand the Keeper graphs, understand the variation analysis, parent and child ASINs, product size. Oh my God, so much knowledge there, so much to research in, but I think that's fantastic. Expect how the market will react. And you talked about Argos 3 for 2s. So, hey, if there's a 3 for 2, expect the price to crash. That was a great top tip there. Ask questions. I thought that was brilliant. You don't know what you don't know. Ask questions. Get out there. Ask them in groups. Let people give you their feedback, but also have that network. I think you talked about it of a few people you talk to all the time privately, and they'll review products for you. That was really good. Or three things which I would say slightly off topic are: read the Tim Ferriss 4-Hour Work Week, which I loved as well. And hey, if you're going to do what you're doing, great. And it's mindset change. Don't hire 6 VAs in one go, because that's a bad idea. And I would agree with that one. And the final one is, if you're an iPhone or thinking of getting an iPhone, get rid of your iPhone, buy an Honor. Buy an Honor phone, because my God, they're cheaper and exactly the same. And I'm with you on that one, because I did exactly the same thing. So Luke's top tips for today: what is your why? Understand your why about your business. From the Diary of the CEO, don't drop the pie reaching for the apple. Basically, do one thing and do it well. And then finally, put everything into perspective. Ask yourself, will you worry about this in 5 years' time? So 3 really good top tips there, and I think I really agree with you. I think fantastic. So Luke, obviously it's been a real pleasure speaking to you today. Now, I know a lot of people will probably watch this and be like, oh my God, I want to talk to Luke because he's got a wealth of knowledge. So, how can we get in contact with you? How can we reach out to you, ask you some questions, maybe hear a bit more about your story?
Yeah, I think probably Facebook's the best way. So Luke Filer on Facebook. Then there's a YouTube channel, which is iGen Entrepreneur, Facebook group iGen Entrepreneur, and website iGen Entrepreneur. And I guess they'll probably be linked. So those are kind of the 2 options. You can either sort of contact me directly, and I'm happy to speak to anyone, or you can check out stuff that I've already sort of put out there. Yeah, cool.
Fantastic. Well, look, from me, Thomas Parkinson at FastTrack FBA, and everyone watching, can I just say thank you very much for taking the time to talk with me today and to share your journey, your story, where you've been and where you're going, but also the top tips. There's a wealth of knowledge that you've learned over the last year of doing your Amazon business, and thank you from me and everyone else for sharing that. That's honestly a real pleasure. So I wish you all the best in your business. I'm envious of you going to Australia, and my God, I look forward to speaking to you in a year's time when you are earning £25,000 net revenue, or making £25,000 net revenue, and 5 hours a week. Tim Ferriss, eat your heart out. So from me to you and everyone else, thank you so much. And from me to everyone else watching this, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been a real pleasure, and catch up soon.
Cheers. Thank you for having me, Thomas. I really enjoyed it.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.